Just 1 year ago, media outlets were widely reporting the Philippine president requested Vietnam to continue supporting, but what happened after 1 year? What we see is still the same Philippines, still the same Vietnam, still the same food story, specifically about rice. This time, it's the news that the Philippines temporarily suspended rice imports for 6 in the context of global food supply chains facing many fluctuations. The Philippines, a country deeply dependent on rice sources from Vietnam, suddenly made the decision to temporarily suspend rice imports. Philippine Agriculture Secretary Francisco T. Laurel Jr. publicly warned that if Vietnam voices opposition, Manila would ship rice imports from India, Myanmar, or Cambodia. At first glance, this statement appears to show the Philippines' firm stance. But in reality, it exposes the inherent risks that this country might bear first. The Philippines' dependence on Vietnamese rice is not accidental. Nearly half of the rice consumed in this island nation comes from Vietnam, accounting for 40 to 45% of it. In the first 7 months of 2025, the Philippines imported a total of nearly 2.5 million, of which Vietnam supplied nearly 1.88 million tons, equivalent to 77%. This figure partly reflects Vietnam's dominant role, as well as emphasizes the close connection between the two countries in the food sector. If the supply chain is disrupted, the Philippines will be the first to fall into crisis, with the risk of severe shortages directly affecting consumers and social stability. Certainly, this decision will somewhat affect Vietnam's rice export market, and in the near future, people will face many challenges. But looking at the big picture, Vietnam, with its position as a world-leading rice exporter, can still flexibly redirect to other markets like Africa or China, where demand is booming. The decision to temporarily suspend rice imports was signed by Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., effective from September 1, 2025. The official reason given by the Philippine Department of Agriculture is to protect domestic farmers. The rice output from the first 2 crops of the year is 9.08 million tons, while inventory as of August 1st reached a record 2.8 million tons, up 27% from the same period last year. They argue that importing cheap rice from abroad is disrupting the domestic market, threatening milling plants and causing local rice prices to fall. This is a reasonable stance in terms of protection. However, it also raises questions about long-term sustainability, as the Philippines has long been unable to fully self-sufficient in food due to geographical and climatic conditions. The response from Vietnam was quickly expressed through the Vietnam Food Association, VIA. This organization requested the Ministry of Industry and Trade to file a complaint with the WTO about the Philippines. Mr. Du Han Oh, chairman of PFA, emphasized that the Philippines is Vietnam's largest market, and the import suspension would cause negative impacts such as increased inventory, price drops, and tightened liquidity. However, he also called on businesses to maintain reserves, avoid panic selling to Middle Eastern, African, and Northeast Asian markets to reduce risk. Secretary Francisco T. Laurel Jr. tried to ease the situation by explaining that his threat was not aimed at the Vietnamese government but only at the rice industry, specifically VFA. He emphasized that this decision is to uphold national interests, protecting Philippine farmers from import pressure. The Philippine secretary recently had a meeting with cabinet members on the sidelines of his visit to India, where he met with rice businesses ready to replace Vietnam's position. It sounds decisive, but in reality, it's full of shortcomings. Rice from India might be, but the shipping time extends from 25 to 30 days, 3 times longer than from Vietnam. This means any disruption could lead to immediate shortages, especially when the Philippines depends on stable supply to avoid crisis. As for Myanmar and Cambodia, although their production is increasing, they can hardly fill the 40 to 45% gap that Vietnam currently holds. These statements therefore seem more reassuring than feasible, aimed at soothing domestic public opinion, rather than addressing the root of the problem. While the Philippines is trying to demonstrate strength, the fact needs to be clearly recognized. Vietnam's rice industry is facing short-term The price of 5% broken rice has fallen below the threshold of $400 per ton, and the trading atmosphere in the Mekong Delta is becoming subdued. Traders are only buying cautiously for the domestic market, while export goods await signals from businesses. In Phnom Penh, factories are rushing to complete old orders for delivery to the Philippines, but new contracts are almost stagnant, and rice prices on the market are trending downward. In just a short time, rice varieties like Daikon Acre OM18 have dropped to 11,000 Vietnamese dons. In Society Trade, prices of many rice types continue to cool down, with common OM18 now only around 10,000. Some other varieties like OM5451 or OM380 have also slightly, while medium quality rice remains stable. Fragrant sticky rice shows signs of price reduction.
This means that farmers, who have invested much effort and capital in growing rice,
face many difficulties. Selling results in losses. Holding onto rice risks further depreciation. The hardship lies not only in the fields under sun and rain, but also in how to cover production costs
and support family life while rice prices keep falling daily.
Now, with the decision to halt imports, contracts stall, inventory soar, liquidity tightening, and domestic prices under strong down, Vietnamese businesses are facing significant risks, directly affecting farmers, who suffer from low rice prices. However, this is only a temporary obstacle, and Vietnam's rice industry has proven its adaptability. Despite the shock from the Philippines, the USDA in its latest report gave an optimistic forecast for Vietnam's rice exports in 2025. Accordingly, the figure could exceed 8.2 million tons, up 300,000 tons from only lower than a record 9 million tons in 2024 but 100,000 tons higher than in 2023. USDA explained that this growth is due to demand from Africa and China in the last months of the year. The Philippines' 60-day import restriction policy is expected to reduce imports by only about 500,000.
As total rice imports still reach 4.9 million tons, the highest globally, maintaining Vietnam.
Not stopping there, USDA also raised forecasts for other countries. Thailand may export 7.2 million tons, up 200,000 tons due to demand. Myanmar is expected to reach 1.9 million tons thanks to orders from China and Europe. Bangladesh is forecast to import 2 million tons, up 500,000 tons. Though not a traditional customer, Bangladesh is becoming the fastest growing market for Vietnamese rice. In the first 7 months of 2025, among the top 15 key markets. Additionally, Indonesia is also expected to import 700,000 tons, up 100,000 tons. All these factors show that the market doors for Vietnamese rice remain wide open, as new markets are compensating for fluctuations from traditional partners. Looking back at the recent journey, Vietnam's rice industry has made significant marks in progress. In just a few years, rice exports have continuously grown in both volume and value,
making Vietnam one of the world's leading countries in rice.
Although the market is currently affected by falling prices, many experts in industry businesses still believe in the potential for breakthrough. They expect Vietnam not only to maintain stable export growth, but also to surpass Thailand to rise to the second global position, just behind India. These results are not just dry numbers, they're clear evidence of the strong vitality of Vietnam's rice industry. An industry that has resiliently overcome many challenges, from natural disasters and to the unpredictable fluctuations of the global market. The Philippines, with its decision to temporarily halt imports, appears to be asserting a strong stance, but in reality shows an undeniable dependency. In contrast, Vietnam, while possibly affected short-term, sees the price drop and high inventory as only temporary. However, we still maintain our advantage thanks to a diverse market network and the increasing global demand for rice. Moreover, this move by the Philippines inadvertently encourages the Vietnamese rice industry to expand its market more strongly,
asserting its position on the world food map, as no country can act alone without paying a price.
The Philippines may aim for self-sufficiency, but the long-term relationship with Vietnamese supply is a reality that is hard to change. Meanwhile, Vietnam demonstrates its true strength through its adaptability, turning challenges into opportunities. With positive forecasts from the USDA and expansion into many emerging markets, the Vietnamese rice industry not only consolidates it, but also gradually enhances its brand, bringing sustainable benefits to farmers and the economy.
Like the journey? Subscribe and join the next expedition.